Hello, everybody. How are y'all doing? It's getting ready to come up to Memorial Day weekend. And I'm finishing my week on the inpatient service, and it's not really been too busy. But it has given me a little bit of time to reflect on some of the things that have occurred this last week that I think might be helpful if I share. Um, with the COVID virus and the isolation, hospitals can be a very, very lonely place for patients right now because they're not allowed visitors. So they're pretty much by themselves and need to communicate with their family by phone, both the doctors, nurses, and patients, instead of in person. So there's three things that stand out in my mind from this week about human relationships and how much we need each other and how much we benefit from human touch and just being close to people we love, and how much that can benefit us both emotionally and sometimes physically. So three patients I think that I can just kind of relate to you. Two of whom were were in the final stages of their cancer, and one had been there for about 2 to 3 weeks, and finally reached a point where we weren't able to do anything that would improve him. We found out that the problems he had were not something that were fixable. And the day that we talked to him, and I talked to his wife on the phone, he was barely able to talk and couldn't say much of anything. So after we talked, we decided that we would focus on comfort measures and plan to try to get him home with hospice, which he really wanted to be at home, where his family could see him and he could see them. But when when we make patients comfort care, they're allowed one visitor. So his wife came up, and they came up by later to talk to him with his wife there, because I just don't like doing these things totally over the telephone. And when I came by, he was a different person in a way. He was actually very communicative, still very weak, still didn't have a lot of other change, but he was actually much more alert and talkative, was able to fully express what he wanted to do. And that was just because he had somebody he loved right next to him that could help him deal with all of this. The same thing happened with another woman the same day or day after, I can't recall which, but she has a very serious cancer and is also running out of options. And a similar type of thing happened with her. She was really very weak and tired and obviously depressed. And we talked with her family over the telephone. And she was having a hard time making certain decisions and clarifying exactly how she wanted to proceed and what we should do. And so we opted, and we talked to him about going with comfort measures. So we really weren't doing much for her at this time, and she agreed and the family agreed. And that's what we did, and her husband came up. And that evening, after he was there, we had more meaningful conversation. And then finally, the next morning, when he was still there, we talked, and we were able to fully clarify how it is she wanted to proceed and how she wanted us to address things as she got sicker with her cancer. And she was much, much, much more able to communicate and deal with these things. And then the third patient is a man who is here by himself, and his wife obviously cares very much about him and wants to know very much about how things are going with him. And when things got busier, they kind of misunderstood what she wanted from us. I think one day we got to call her and let her know, and she was really pretty upset. But we started talking with her on the phone in the room with him, and I think we had things worked out. And he himself was having a hard time making some of these decisions about what to do in terms of whether he was well enough to go home and wanted to go home. And just the fact that his wife couldn't be there with him was making it harder for him. Fortunately, his wife was a very strong person and was quite able to help us figure out what needed to be done for her husband. So those things worked out, and it kind of makes me think about some of these things about couples and not being able to be around each other. Like John Prine's song about married couples been married for a long time, and in spite of ourselves, we'll end up sitting on a rainbow. Against all odds, honey, we're the big door prize. We're gonna spite our noses right off of our faces. There won't be nothing but a big old heart dancing in our eyes. And you can see that in people when you're able to take care of them like I am. So I guess the other message that I'd just like to bring to everybody for the Memorial Day weekend, because we are opening up, I just want people to be safe. And I know that some people feel that wearing a mask may stigmatize you as being not just a wimp, but, quote, a liberal, but that's not the way it really should be. I think that you should wear a mask to protect others. You don't really want to accidentally expose somebody, have them end up in the hospital, and be alone, be very sick, and maybe even die from this illness. So we're opening them up, wear a mask, social distance 6 feet from people, even if both are wearing masks, the safest thing to do, and wash your hands frequently. And please don't get upset with anybody if they ask you to wear a mask or they walk away from you if you're not wearing a mask. It has nothing to do with you. And if you're wearing a mask, I thank you from the bottom of my heart for wearing your mask. Have a good weekend.